Hey guys, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. The question we're going to try to answer today, will this little tiny 30 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery by Cycle and Bat actually run this whole boat? Can I actually get enough out of this to get out on the lake, do some trolling, maybe even use the lights, the live well pump, the bilge. Now I've got a 50-pound thrust Minn Kota in the back and a 45-pound motor guide in the front. Let's hook it up and find out. So while I go ahead and install this thing, it feels like such a toy. I'll tell you a little bit of a history of the batteries I've actually had on this boat. Now I started off, like most people, with lead acid batteries, and I had 2 of them because I found that I really needed the extra range and the extra power to run these 2 trolling motors, because sometimes I'll run them together. And then when I did this big refit of this boat where I decked it out and put all this stuff on it, it got so heavy I didn't want to use those lead acid batteries. So I ended up putting in 2 Lithium Time minis. They're 100 amp hour each, and it cut the weight in like 2/3. So I went from about 90 pounds worth of batteries to about just a little over 30 pounds worth of batteries. But I found that I almost never used anything more than maybe 20% of all the power those 2 100 amp hour batteries had. So I thought that was a bit of overkill, and I went to a single 100 amp hour smart battery that I did a video about just a few weeks ago, and I'll put a link for it up here. But now I'm really wondering, is this all you really need just for a couple hours in the afternoon? Especially if you're running on a canoe or kayak, or even like a GNU, or just a light skiff. Well, we're gonna get out there, we're gonna do some trolling. We'll measure the amp draw from this motor, and then we'll see what kind of range we have, how long we can run, and maybe we'll catch a fish in the meantime. All right, stick around, we're gonna get this done. So while I go ahead and gather up my fishing gear, let me tell you a little bit about how I'm going to run this little experiment to be able to measure what the draw is on the battery, how many amps that motor is going to be pulling. I've got this clip-on DC amp meter, and if you've never seen one, it works on induction. You basically put it around one of the wires and it'll read directly what amperage that motor is pulling at whatever speed we've got it set at. Now my intention is to set it at a single speed to take a little bit of the variability out of it and just troll around the lake. Now, today is a moderately windy day. It's not too bad. The wind is mostly out of the south, so we'll be running east and west, so that should nullify the wind issue. There's no current in this little lake, and we're only gonna be using 1 motor, just to keep things simple. I'm also gonna be using my Navionics application. This is sort of a little chart plotter that gives me my speed and my direction, and it'll chart a path and give me the distance we traveled over that time. So this way we can get hours of operations, how many amps, and that'll give us the true amp hour draw on that battery, and we'll get a feel for the distance range for that boat. Now, understand that that boat is, it's an aluminum boat, but it's so tricked out that it's not a light boat anymore. So its original weight was about 140 pounds empty. It used to be a little empty rowboat, but now it weighs just under 300 pounds empty. So that battery weighs just a little lighter than 8 pounds. It's a 30 amp hour battery, and that's the energy capacity in the actual battery. So that means if you're pulling 10 amps, you can run 3 hours. So their little manual is pretty handy. It gives you a lot of good information and also lets you know how to properly hook it up and take care of it. And it gives you its capacity and its limitations. Now the battery has a BMS built into it. That's a battery monitoring system. And that's like a little controlling computer that keeps the battery charging correctly and discharging correctly, and has its limitations. So if it overheats, it'll shut it down. If it's too cold for it to either charge or discharge, it'll also disconnect. Or if it gets overloaded, it'll also disconnect. So let's talk about what overloading means. Now it's a lithium battery, so you charge it at a little bit higher voltage than you do with lead acid. So a lithium charger charges at about 14.4 volts. So the maximum continuous discharge amperage, so how much amperage you can actually pull on it continuously, is 20 amps, but the peak amperage it'll actually put out is 40 amps, but it'll only do that for about 5 seconds. Now we're not going to come even close to that with that trolling motor. If I remember right, even at its peak draw, at its fastest speed, it only draws just under 20 amps. So it should be obvious that you're not going to run an 80 or 100 pound thrust trolling motor with this little thing. But I suppose if you stacked like 6 of them together, you probably could do it. The maximum current you can charge it is 20 amps. And the max temperatures is -4 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degree Fahrenheit. So if it goes either below or above those, it'll shut down. Well, we're in Florida, we're not gonna have to worry about the temperatures. What I wanna know is whether that little battery is actually gonna be enough for my afternoon outings on the lake, which is usually about a couple hours of fishing. If that little battery is all I need, it might be all I use. So while we're in the shop, let's go ahead and pick a couple of little lures to troll. So how about this little minnow that I made out of popsicle sticks? And I'll put links to the videos where I made these lures just above me somewhere. And this little silver-plated two-part swim bait. That ought to be fun. All right, we're ready to go out and do our test. Let me just show you. I've got a 2-battery switch. Number 1 is our big battery. It'll be our return home battery. Number 2 is the little battery we're going to test. All right, and I also have it hooked up to a charger, and it's number 2. You can see it's fully charged. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is check the amperage draw on each one of the speed. Now hopefully you can see that 6 amps at speed 1. Now I'm going to go to speed 2. We're at 7.6, and we'll go to speed 3, which is what I intend to troll at. We're going kind of fast, so maybe we'll troll at 2, but this is about 14 amps. Let's go to 4, second to fastest, and a little too fast to troll. And then absolute the fastest speed, which is actually more, I remembered it being 25, but it's actually around 35 amps. It's going to be a little too much for our little battery, so we're going to keep it at 4 or below. Our speed is going to be right at 2 knots. All right, just doing a quick calculation, or 2 nautical miles per hour. Now at steady state is pulling right at 13 amps. So we should be able to run around 2 hours and 20 minutes steady. So that'll give us about 4.6 miles of actual travel distance. We'll see how that goes. All right, so I was a little off on the wind. It's coming out of the east, and we're going west right now. So it actually helps us this way and slows us down that way. But I think it should cancel each other out as long as it stays pretty stable. All right, we've been at it for about 20 minutes. Got our first fish. Nice little speck. All right, hopefully you can see this. That's our track. So far, we're gonna try to cover this whole part of the lake. Just go back and forth until the battery dies. All right, we're on our second fish. Oh, it came off. Came off. All right, I think we got another one. Oh yeah, might be a small bass. Oh, it's another nice perch. Oh, well, I think we got plenty of power to go ahead and put water in the live well. We're officially at the 2-hour mark, and we've traveled just under 3 miles right now. So we should be getting close to this thing just dying on us. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the other edge of the lake and see if I can find anything there. We haven't caught anything in a little while. And let's see if we're still drawing the same amount of average, 12.7, so just short of 13. It seems to get a little lower as, well, obviously we get out of the wind, and as it gets to a steady state where it's not fighting any waves or anything. So we'll see what we get. All right, we're approaching the estimated amount of time that I thought it would run. We're at 2 hours 17 minutes and no signs of it giving up. But we haven't gone quite as far as I thought. We've gone 3.5 miles, and so that's about a mile short of what I thought. It's not over yet. Now what I'm thinking is happening when we're going downwind, like right now, we're actually drawing less amperage, but we're really not going much faster. So it looks like we're actually giving up distance for more running time, and that's just due to the wind. I think that's my theory, but we'll see at the end here what we end up with. Yeah, you can see this is the upwind leg, and we're actually a third of an amp higher and about a half knot slower. So this is downwind. 12.13 it looks like. The wind has calmed down though. You can see there's hardly any wind now. An hour ago you actually had waves, and we actually had some ripples coming across and either slowing us down or helping us out just a little. And I was just sitting here going, man, my butt's getting sore. I've been out here for a long time. Let's take a look at the stats. All right, we've got 2 hours 41 minutes, 4.1 miles That's pretty close to what we estimated to begin with. All right, here it is. We started at 327, ended at 608. Average speed was 1.5. So the wind has completely died now and it's calm, and I'm glad. I'm ready to go in. I'm duly impressed. I actually didn't think we were going to get that much out of this little battery. 7 pounds. That's just amazing. 7 pounds. In the past, a battery this size would be rated in the milliamp hours, not the multiple amp hours. This is pretty impressive. Now, whether this fits your need is going to be dependent on you, your boat, and how you use it. For me, it's probably going to be just a little short, but doggone close, I gotta say. That's about as long as I fish in the evening, and I would need just a little more to get home. But I think if I had a canoe or a kayak, it might do the job perfectly. But realistically, if I used it on my kayak, I think I would get two. One for going out and one for coming in. So I'll go ahead and put all the links that are available to me down in the description. If I can get a hold of a discount code for this, I'll also put it down there. And to be honest with you, I have not researched the price point on this, whether it's a bargain or it's one of the expensive ones. I don't know. I just wanted to test to see if this would work trolling a lake for fish. Alright guys, if you like this kind of videos, give me a thumbs up. And if you've got your own experience with little lithium batteries, put them in the description. I'm sure everybody would want to see them. Alright, I'll see you next Friday for a lure bill.